There is a strange kind of freedom that comes from doing something that serves no purpose at all. No resume boost, no calorie burn, no side income. Just you, alone with an activity that the rest of the world might call a complete waste of time. And yet, this useless thing might be the very reason you survive the years ahead with your soul still intact. We live in an age where every moment begs to be optimized, where rest feels like laziness and hobbies feel like they need a business plan. Somewhere along the way, we started measuring the value of our free time by what it produces. But what if the most productive thing you could do is something entirely unproductive? What if the key to staying whole in a fractured world is to waste a little time on purpose? Think about the last time you did something just because it felt good, not because it would make you healthier, not because it would look impressive, not because someone else would approve, just because in that moment, for reasons you cannot explain, it made you feel alive. If you are struggling to remember such a moment, you are not alone. Most of us have forgotten what it feels like to play without a scoreboard. The modern world has sold us a lie dressed up as wisdom. The lie says that you must always be improving, always leveling up, always moving towards some distant version of yourself that is thinner, richer, more accomplished, more desirable. And so we take our hobbies, those sacred pockets of joy, and we turn them into obligations. We go to the gym not to feel strong, but to look a certain way. We read books not for wonder, but to hit a yearly goal. We learn instruments not for the music, but for the story we can tell at parties. The joy leaks out, and we do not notice because we are too busy tracking our progress. But here is the secret that no productivity guru will tell you. Your nervous system knows the difference. Your body can feel when an activity carries the weight of expectation versus when it carries the lightness of pure being. And over time, that difference matters more than you might imagine. Consider a case profile. Imagine a woman in her 40s who spent 2 decades climbing the corporate ladder. She was good at her job, very good. She earned promotions, respect, financial security. She also earned chronic migraines, a divorce, and a sense that she had somehow misplaced large portions of her own life. One evening, while cleaning out her childhood bedroom at her mother's house, she found an old box of watercolors. On impulse, she sat down and painted something terrible. A lumpy sunset over a green blob meant to be a tree. It was the first thing she had created in 20 years that she did not have to show anyone. No performance review, no client feedback, just her and the paper and the terrible, wonderful freedom of making something that did not matter at all. She kept painting. Every Sunday morning, before the world woke up and asked things of her, she would sit with those cheap watercolors and make something ugly. She never improved much. She never sold a painting or posted one online. But something inside her began to heal. The migraines became less frequent. Her sleep deepened. She found herself laughing more easily. And when people asked her what changed, she could not explain it in any way that made logical sense. All she knew was that those useless hours with the watercolors had given her back a piece of herself she forgot she had lost. This is not a story about the magic of art. It is a story about the magic of purposelessness. When we engage in an activity purely for its own sake, something shifts in the brain. Psychologists call this autotelic experience, from the Greek words for self and goal. An autotelic activity is one where the doing is the reward. There is no external payoff, no before and after, no transformation montage, just the quiet pleasure of being absorbed in something that asks nothing of you except your presence. There is a particular quality to this kind of absorption. It is different from the focus you bring to work, which always carries an undercurrent of anxiety about outcomes. It is different from entertainment, which is often just distraction wearing a pleasant mask. This absorption is something softer, more complete. The Germans have a word for it, Muße, which means leisure in the deepest sense. Not the absence of work, but the presence of something else. A fullness of being that does not need to justify itself. When you are truly absorbed in a useless activity, time behaves strangely. Hours can pass like minutes. You look up and the light has changed, and you cannot account for where the afternoon went. This is not lost time. This is found time. Time that has been rescued from the endless march of productivity and returned to its original purpose, which is simply to be experienced. The opposite of this state is what most of us live in every day. We are constantly performing for an invisible audience, optimizing for outcomes, measuring ourselves against standards we did not choose. Even our rest has become a tool. We meditate to be more focused at work. We take vacations to come back refreshed and productive. We sleep to perform better tomorrow. Nothing is allowed to simply be what it is. Everything must serve the machine. But the machine is hungry. It always wants more. And when you feed it your hobbies, when you turn your joy into another form of labor, you run out of places to hide. You run out of spaces where you can simply exist without justification. Perhaps you have felt this creeping exhaustion, the kind that sleep does not fix, the kind that shows up as a flatness in your chest, a grayness in your days. You are doing all the right things. You are checking all the boxes, and yet something essential feels missing. This is the symptom of a life where every corner has been colonized by purpose, where there is no room left for the soul to breathe. We have become experts at productive rest. We meditate with apps that track our streaks. We take walks but count our steps. We read but keep lists of what we have finished. Even our relaxation has become a form of performance, something to optimize and measure and share. And deep down, in a place we rarely visit, there is a part of us that remembers what it felt like to simply exist without documentation. The exhaustion you feel might not be from doing too much. It might be from never having a space where doing is not the point. Your nervous system is designed for cycles of engagement and release, effort and rest, purpose and purposelessness. When one side of this cycle is never honored, the whole system starts to break down. You can have 8 hours of sleep and still wake up tired, because rest without surrender is not really rest at all. A useless hobby is not about escaping your life. It is about creating a sanctuary within it, a small protected sacred space where the rules of achievement do not apply, where you are allowed to be bad at something, where progress is not the point, where you can remember what it felt like to be a child on a summer afternoon with nothing to prove and nowhere to be. Think about what children do when left to themselves. They dig holes for no reason. They collect rocks that look interesting. They make up games with rules that change every 5 minutes. They are not preparing for anything. They are not building skills for their future selves. They are simply alive in the moment, fully present to the strange wonder of existing in a body on a spinning planet. Somewhere along the way, we decided this was a phase to outgrow rather than a wisdom to preserve. Watch a child who has been given nothing to do. At first, there might be boredom, that uncomfortable gap between stimulation. But if you wait, something beautiful happens. The child begins to invent, to explore, to discover fascination in the smallest things. A crack in the sidewalk becomes a canyon. A stick becomes a wand. The whole world becomes interesting again because there is no agenda pressing down on it. We lost this somewhere, not all at once, but gradually, as responsibilities accumulated and time became a resource to be managed. The playful part of ourselves did not die. It just went underground, waiting for permission to resurface. A useless hobby is that permission. Here is another narrative illustration worth considering. A man in his 60s recently retired after a career in accounting. Numbers had been his life for 40 years. Spreadsheets and tax codes and the precise language of debits and credits. When he stopped working, he expected to feel relief. Instead, he felt lost. His identity had been so wrapped up in usefulness that without it, he did not know who he was. One afternoon, walking through a forest near his home, he noticed the moss growing on the north side of the trees. He had walked this path hundreds of times and never really seen it. But now, with nothing else demanding his attention, he stopped. He knelt down. He looked closely at the tiny world growing on the bark. He started researching moss, not to become an expert or publish papers, just because he found it interesting. He learned that there are over 12,000 species of moss, that some can survive being dried out for years and spring back to life with a single drop of water. That moss has no roots, no flowers, no seeds. It is an ancient form of life that has been quietly covering the earth for millions of years, while more ambitious plants came and went. He began photographing moss. Not good photographs necessarily, just records of what he found. He kept a small notebook where he sketched the different types and tried to identify them. He never showed anyone. He never joined a club or started a blog. It was entirely his, this small obsession with something the rest of the world steps over without noticing. His wife said he seemed different, lighter, more present. He had found something that asked nothing of him except his attention. Something that connected him to the slow, patient rhythms of the natural world. Something completely, wonderfully useless. The guilt you might feel when you waste time is worth examining. Where does it come from? Whose voice is that in your head, telling you that you should be doing something more valuable? For many of us, that voice was installed early, by parents who wanted us to succeed, by schools that ranked us against each other, by a culture that measures worth in output and followers and visible accomplishment. The guilt is not a sign that you are being irresponsible. It is a sign that you have internalized a system that does not serve your well-being. Let me tell you about another case profile. A composite example of someone who discovered this truth in an unexpected way. This man was a software engineer in his 30s, living in a city that never slept, and working for a company that expected the same of him. He was successful by all external measures. Good salary, nice apartment, a social media presence that made his life look enviable. But inside he felt increasingly hollow. He could not remember the last time he had done something that was not connected to work, networking, or self-improvement. One rainy Saturday, he wandered into a small shop that sold model train supplies. He had no idea why he went in. Model trains seemed like the most useless thing imaginable. Who had time for that? Who cared about tiny fake trees and miniature station platforms? But something about the shop felt peaceful. The old man behind the counter was not trying to sell him anything. He was just happy to be there, surrounded by his small, pointless kingdom. The engineer bought a starter kit on impulse. That night, he sat at his kitchen table for 4 hours, assembling a tiny locomotive. He did not check his phone once. He did not think about work. He was entirely absorbed in the small, ridiculous task of making a plastic train look real. When he finally went to bed, he slept better than he had in months. He never became serious about model trains. He never built elaborate layouts or joined online communities. But he kept that little locomotive on his desk, and every few weeks, he would add something small to it, a tiny tree, a painted rock, a figure of a man with a briefcase. It was his secret, his sanctuary, the one corner of his life that belonged only to him and asked for nothing in return. What happens in the brain during these useless activities is fascinating. When we engage in something purely for its own sake, the default mode network activates in a healthy way. This is the part of the brain associated with daydreaming, self-reflection, and creativity. It is also the part that gets suppressed when we are constantly task-focused, constantly optimizing, constantly alert to external demands. By doing something useless, we give this network room to breathe. We allow thoughts to wander. We create space for insights that would never surface in a state of relentless productivity. The default mode network is sometimes called the imagination network. It lights up when we are not focused on the external world, when we let our minds drift and make unexpected connections. Some of the most creative breakthroughs in history came during these moments of productive wandering. But you cannot force it. You cannot schedule it between meetings. It requires genuine mental leisure, the kind that a useless hobby naturally provides. There is also something important that happens to the stress response system. When every activity carries expectations and measurements, the body stays in a subtle state of threat. Am I doing this well enough? Will this count? What if I fail? These questions trigger a low-grade activation of the fight or flight response. Over time, this chronic activation wears down the body and mind. It contributes to anxiety, depression, and burnout. A useless hobby, by contrast, signals safety to the nervous system. Nothing is at stake here. You cannot fail at something that has no success criteria. The body can finally relax. This is why hobbies that start pure often lose their healing power when we try to improve at them. The moment you decide you want to get good at something, you introduce the possibility of failure. You create a gap between where you are and where you want to be. That gap generates stress, however subtle. The activity is no longer a sanctuary. It has become another arena for performance. Think about how many hobbies have been ruined by the pressure to excel. Someone discovers they enjoy running, and within months they are training for marathons, tracking every split time, feeling guilty when they miss a workout. Someone picks up a guitar, and soon they are comparing themselves to professionals, frustrated by their slow progress, losing the simple joy of making sound. The hobby that was supposed to provide relief becomes another source of the very pressure it was meant to escape. Some people worry that if they allow themselves to waste time, they will become lazy. They will lose their edge. They will fall behind in the endless race. But the evidence suggests the opposite. People who maintain hobbies purely for enjoyment tend to be more creative, more resilient, and ultimately more productive in their work. The useless activity becomes a kind of reset button, a way to return to the demanding parts of life with renewed energy and perspective. The key is that the hobby must truly be useless. The moment you start tracking it, optimizing it, or sharing it for approval, some of the magic drains away. You can enjoy a hobby that produces something beautiful or impressive, but you must be willing to also produce things that are terrible. You must be willing to never improve. You must protect the activity from your own ambition. This is harder than it sounds. We are trained to turn everything into a project, to set goals and measure progress. to share our journeys and document our growth. The discipline of uselessness requires actively resisting these urges. It means keeping something private in an age of constant sharing. It means being bad at something in a world that worships mastery. It means protecting a space that has no value to anyone except yourself. There is something almost countercultural about refusing to share. We live in an age where experiences feel incomplete until they are witnessed, where a walk in nature is not fully real until it has been photographed and posted, where our inner lives increasingly exist for external consumption. A truly useless hobby resists this. It is something you do in private, for no audience, generating no content, just you and the activity and the quiet satisfaction of time well wasted. The privacy is part of what makes it healing. When we share something, we invite judgment. Even positive judgment creates pressure. We start to perform, to curate, to present the best version of our hobby rather than the honest one. The useless hobby you keep to yourself is free from all of this. It belongs entirely to you. It exists in a space where the only opinion that matters is your own. And even that opinion does not matter very much. What might your useless hobby be? Perhaps it is something you already do but have not given yourself permission to embrace. Perhaps it is something you have always wanted to try but dismissed as frivolous. Perhaps it is something so strange and specific that you have never told anyone about it. Consider the activities that have no obvious benefit. Watching clouds, skipping stones, learning to identify birds you will probably never see again, making friendship bracelets you will never give to anyone, growing plants you do not eat, walking in neighborhoods you do not live in, sitting in coffee shops and writing descriptions of strangers you will never meet, building tiny worlds in your imagination, arranging objects on your desk in patterns that please only you, humming songs you make up on the spot. None of these things will make you more successful. None of them will improve your metrics. All of them might save your life. And when I say save your life, I do not mean in the dramatic sense of physical survival. I do not mean rescue from immediate danger or illness. I mean something quieter, but perhaps more important. I mean preserving the part of you that is more than a worker, more than a body to be optimized, more than a profile to be curated. I mean keeping alive the strange, curious, playful creature you were before the world told you that everything needed to count for something. There is a Japanese concept called ikigai that has been somewhat misunderstood in the West. Many people think it is about finding the overlap between what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. But in Japan, ikigai is often much simpler. It can be found in small daily pleasures, the first cup of tea in the morning, a particular flower that blooms each spring, a hobby that serves no grand purpose but makes life feel worth living. Ikigai is not about grand purpose. It is about having something that makes you want to get out of bed. Your useless hobby might be your ikigai. Not because it changes the world or defines your identity or looks impressive on a dating profile, but because it reminds you that you are a human being, not a human doing, that your worth is not determined by your output, that somewhere beneath all the roles you play and the goals you chase, there is still a self that exists simply because it exists. The hours you spend on your useless hobby are not hours lost. They are hours reclaimed. They are hours where you practice being rather than becoming, where you remember that life is not a project to be completed, but an experience to be lived, where you touch something essential that the busy world tries so hard to make you forget. So tonight, or this weekend, or whenever you next find a pocket of unscheduled time, I invite you to waste it. beautifully, completely, without apology. Find something that serves no purpose at all and give yourself to it, not to become better at it, not to post about it, just to do it, in the same way a child plays, in the same way a cat watches dust float through a sunbeam. Let yourself be useless for an hour and notice what happens in your body, in your breath, in the quiet space behind your thoughts. You might find that this useless thing becomes the most valuable part of your week. You might find that it changes nothing and everything at the same time. You might find that in a world that is always asking you to prove your worth, the most radical act is to do something that proves nothing at all. And if you have a useless hobby, something strange and pointless and entirely your own, I would love to hear about it. Not because I need to know, not because it needs to be shared, but because there is something beautiful about knowing that out there, in living rooms and garages and quiet corners, people are keeping small fires burning. Fires that produce no heat, no light, no measurable value, just the soft, warm glow of a human being remembering how to play. That might be the real secret to surviving these difficult and demanding times. Not becoming stronger or more productive or more optimized, just remembering how to waste time well. And in that waste, finding something that the efficient world can never take from you. A piece of yourself that belongs only to the present moment. A sanctuary that asks nothing and gives back everything. A useless, precious, life-saving thing.